Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So the Ghazali project is really about how we can launch a revival of Islam today. So this is the poster for the current project, which Lisa will explain to you more about, inshallah, later. So we can start with the very first wahi. This is where Islam started, where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting in the cave of Hira, and he was looking for guidance. And Angel Jibreel alayhi salam came, and this is the very first, the beginning of Islam. And he said, he told him to read, Iqra. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. So in this very first wahi, the Prophet ﷺ was told that what is he was looking for Allah, who is Allah, and he didn't even know. So Allah Ta'ala introduced himself. Now you know that Allah Ta'ala has 100 names, and his sifat are such that they will, all the water of the ocean turned into ink cannot describe him. So Allah Ta'ala can describe himself in many ways. But how does he describe himself here? He says that your Rabb is Akram, most generous. And Allah Ta'ala, because Allah Ta'ala gives you knowledge. So there are two things. Allah Ta'ala is very generous. He is giving us things. And what is the most precious gift of God? It is knowledge. So this knowledge that is given to man, taught man which he knew not, this knowledge actually changed the world. So the question is, what is this knowledge? This is the central question of the Ghazali project. What is the knowledge that God gave to man? What is it that is referred to? Allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam. So what is this ilm? So before we talk about what the ilm was, we ask, what is the effect of this ilm? So that we can see easily. You see, pre-Islamic Arabia was called Jahiliya, period of Jahiliya, ignorant and backwards. They were at the bottom. And also, all over the planet, it was dark. Nobody had any knowledge. But the coming of Islam made Muslims into the leaders of the world. But what leaders? Were they the conquerors of the world? No. They were the ones who gave knowledge to the world. Because Allah Ta'ala talks about ilm as nur. And he talks about, he leads the believer from darkness into light. So it was the light of Islam which lightened the world. And so we see that for 1,000 years the Muslims were leaders of the world because of their knowledge. So we see that very powerful knowledge was given to Muslims in the Quran. And this was implemented and demonstrated in the lives of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his companions, Raziyallahu anhum ajma'in. So today, once again, Muslims are backwards and ignorant. And the question is, does this message have the same power? Can it again bring us the same advance that it brought 1400 years ago? So the Quran says that it is complete and perfect. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islam deena. And in another place the Quran says that this knowledge that you have been given, the Muslims, is much better than anything that everyone else has been given. So our knowledge is superior to the knowledge of Einstein and Newton and whatever knowledge the West has been given. So the question is that our hearts, our iman, our faith says that yes, this must be true. But there is a problem. You need to mute everybody. So, if the Quran is complete and perfect, then why are Muslims backwards and ignorant today? And today we think that if we want to progress, then we need to learn physics, chemistry, biology, economics, political science. All over the world, Muslim students are studying these subjects. But these subjects are not part of the Quran and Hadith. So there is a problem. Our heads and our hands, by which I mean our action, says that no, all useful knowledge comes from the West. But our heart says that no, the message of the Quran is the best knowledge. So there is a contradiction, a conflict. The heart says something and the head says something else. So how can we resolve this conflict? So to understand this, we have to understand why this conflict arose. It was not there from the start. When did it come up? Well, basically, it was through the colonization and the conquest of the Europe. European powers controlled about 90% of the globe in the early 20th century. Now, one has to understand something which is not obvious, that conquest is not done by guns. It is done by knowledge. It is done by changing minds. If you accept, if you make you see, you have a few people, 1,000 white people in India, governing a population of millions. How is it possible? By force. It is not possible. 1,000 people do not have enough force to control millions. So what do? They control the minds. Once the minds believe that yes, the Europeans are superior and advanced and they have the right to rule and we are inferior and we are like animals and we are like cattle, then you will allow yourself to be ruled. It is just, you see, today, even now, in the villages, you see the child of very young child taking a very big buffalo and telling him to do this and that, and the buffalo obeys. The buffalo has a lot more power, but the mind of the buffalo is not powerful enough to resist. So the conquest of the world led to the conquest of our minds. And whose minds? My mind and your mind. So how was this done and how can we undo this? This is the one of the critical things about the Ghazali project, that we have to undo the colonization of the minds. And in this, it's learning the true history is very important, because one of the tools that has been used to conquer our minds is a false history. And so, what are some of the key falsehoods, key lies that we have been taught? Well, the basic lie is racism, that only the white race is capable of rational thought. And the human being is the one who is rational. So, in fact, we are not human beings according to the standard Eurocentric theory. The second thing which we all learn in our Western education is that only whites have created human knowledge. Basically, over the past 3 centuries, the Europeans invented everything that we know: the history, geography, biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, economics, political science. Everything comes from Europe. So basically, only the white races are capable of creating knowledge. It was this misconception, this racist idea, that led to the global conquest by the whites. They did not treat other people like human beings, they treated them like animals, and they killed like animals. And everybody who has been colonized has experienced how mass murders and genocide has been done by the colonizers, with the which has created the ideas in their minds that we are just like insects, and also in our minds, unfortunately. The killing of Iraq, 1 million children, 1 million people, civilians killed, and the whole country destroyed, and nobody says anything because these are not human beings, these are inferior. So this philosophy of social Darwinism, which is part of the West, that we human beings are just animals, and this world is like a jungle. It's a competition for survival of the fittest. So if you can kill, this is good, because that will lead to the survival of the powerful. Again, all of these false philosophies are used to justify the colonization and conquest done by Europe. So the one of the keys of Western philosophy, which we have also absorbed, is that there is no life after death, there is no judgment. Once you have this, then the only goal of life can be to maximize pleasure. So, and there is no need to think about others, no need to have compassion, love, help others, because we only have one life to live. Let everybody live according to their own pleasure. So there is this theory of ethics that all is fair in pursuit of pleasure, power, and profits. All of these philosophies are the philosophies of barbarians, not the philosophies of civilizations. So how can we free our minds from this colonization? So the thing is to change the questions. Don't ask how we can, what is the composition of water. Ask, who am I? We don't need to learn about H2O. We need to learn about who this person, who created me, who created the universe, what is the purpose of my life? How can I spend my life in the best possible way? How can we construct a good society? So Western knowledge gives us the wrong answers to these key questions. And this is the key to understanding the failure of Western knowledge. The Western strategy is to change the question. At MIT, when I was studying, I asked my professor, what is the meaning of life? What should I do with my life? And the professor gave me the wrong answer. He said that let's learn first how to do 2 plus 2 equals 4. Learn calculus. First learn the simple things, then you can learn the difficult things. But this was the wrong answer, because no matter how much chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics you learn, you will never learn the purpose of life. And without knowing the purpose, you will waste your life. Because if you don't know the purpose of your existence, then you will do things which are not related to the purpose. So Allah Ta'ala has explained how this problem arises. Allah Ta'ala says that, have we not shown him the two highways? فَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. And Allah Ta'ala says, فَمَنْ شَاءَ اتَّخَذَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا. So there are two highways, one leads to God and the other leads to Shaitan or Jahannam. So the Western highway, which we are learning, and our education teaches us, how can we get more pleasure, how can we get more money, how can we get more power, and this is the way of life. The Eastern highway is to serve the creation of God for the sake of the love of God. So what is useful knowledge? Well, it depends on what your purpose is. If you want to conquer the world, if you want to kill all the people, then you should study physics and build atom bombs. If you want to learn about who you are, then you have to work on your heart and soul and how to develop your hidden capabilities. And for that, no matter how much chemistry you study, you will not learn how to be a kind person, how to build your connection with God, how to live a rich life. All of these things, there is no answer in chemistry. So what is a colonized mind? A colonized mind is one which has accepted the Western goal of life, that life is about pleasure and power and profits and money. And then we believe that we are objects. Human lives are for sale in the labor market. And today, nearly all students all over the Islamic world believe that they are human resources, that they are studying so that then after they get their degree, they will be sold in the labor market for the highest bidder. So the value of their life is how much they earn. When students come to ask me what I should study, they ask which career will give me the maximum amount of money. So they are looking to make money from their education. And this is wrong, because this means that we are cheap. We are for sale for dollars. And this is not true. The Quran teaches us that we are not for sale. Allah Ta'ala tells us that whoever saves one life, it is as if he has saved the whole of mankind. So this is very strange, because it says that one life equals 7 billion lives. Today there are 7 billion people on the planet. This doesn't make sense. How can you do it mathematically? 1 equals 7 billion? This is wrong. But the Quran is talking about the potential. You see, the seed, it contains a tree, not just a tree. The tree will have more seeds, and the more seeds will have more trees. So one seed is equal to millions of trees if it develops the potential. Just like that, our lives also have the potential to change billions of lives. So how can we develop this potential? How can we how can we grow in such a way, just like the seed grows into a tree, how can we grow so as to become what we were meant to be? Now, this question, there is no answer in all of Western sciences. So, in order to learn the value of Islam, we must learn the value of our own selves, our own human lives. So, there are two highways. One is the Western highway, in which we are cheap. We are human resources. We are for sale in the labor market. And if you take a Western education, it will tell you how you can get the largest number of dollars in your life. That's one highway. The Eastern highway is that we are human beings. And so our lives have already been sold to God. Allah Ta'ala has purchased the souls and the property of believers. بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. So our lives are infinitely precious. No matter how much, millions of billions of dollars, all the money in the world cannot buy our life. So in that case, there can be no labor markets because our lives are not for sale. So we need, in economics, we need new ways to think about production and consumption because it cannot be done in the capitalist model. Similarly, we need different educational models. The human resources are trained for skills valuable in the job market, but the human being has to be trained personally. Every human being has a different potential. So the teacher has to assess who is this student, what is his or her capability, how can we create the best education which will develop the hidden capabilities. So there is a motto about on a madrasa, here we do not teach fish to fly, and here we do not teach birds to swim. Every student has to be trained according to their own potential. You cannot give standard education to everybody, and this is what the purpose of the Western education is. It is to turn every student into a standardized part which can fit into the factory of capitalist production. But Islam is very different. So now we come to the Ghazali project. How can we launch an Islamic revolution today? How did the final message of God, which was written in the Quran and demonstrated in the life of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, how did they change the world? And how can we use this message to change the world today? And so the key is that this starts with an internal revolution. The revolution must be made inside ourselves. The Western highway tells us how to build cars and how to build bridges, but the Islamic highway teaches us how to build a human being, and in particular how to build me, how to make myself the best human being, because Allah Ta'ala says that لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. The man is the best of the creations. So how can we become the best of creations? So there are 3 steps in the Ghazali project. One is the deliverance from doubt, al-munqidh min ad-dalala. This means that there are many messages in front of us. There is the West and the East, and there is communism and socialism and capitalism and many other ideologies. And within Islam also we have many factions. So how can we find the truth? And how can we be sure that we have found the truth? This is the doubt. Maybe this is true, maybe that is true. This is the problem. The first problem is how to find the truth and how to be sure that we have found the truth. The second step is Tahafutul Falsafa. Tahafutul Falsafa means we reject Western knowledge. They have confused the minds of everybody on the planet, and they have made things which are dirt look like gold, and they've made things which are golden look like dirt. So we have to understand the illusion. We have to free our minds from the colonization. And the third step is to recreate, rebuild the whole stock of human knowledge which has been corrupted by the West on new Islamic foundations. So these are the three steps. So we go through briefly the three steps. The first step is, how can we get certainty about the truth? So in his own book, Ghazali says that he looked at all of the existing factions at that time. And he learned that most people are just following habit. They believe something because everybody else believes that. So they haven't really thought about what it is. This also includes about Islam. I mean, if we believe in Islam because our parents believed in it, then this is not true knowledge. So how can we find about the truth? So he thought and thought and thought, and he found that reason cannot lead to the truth, and the empirical evidence, our senses, cannot lead to the truth. Because he says that our senses, they often make mistakes. Sometimes we see water and there is no water there. Sometimes we see dreams and there is nothing there. And so the evidence of the senses is not reliable, and also reason is not reliable. If we just think about how many times we made logical arguments but we came to the wrong conclusion, it's obvious that reason is not a reliable guide to truth. So how can we get to the truth? So he said that after thinking and thinking and thinking, I found that there was no solution to this problem. So I fell into despair and I became sick because I could not find a way out. And then Allah Ta'ala put Noor into my breast, and that Noor was the key to knowledge. So how do we get certainty? Certainty comes only from the Noor of Allah. Now, very interestingly, both Descartes and Hume, leading Western philosophers, follow exactly the same path, and they have exactly the same argument, but they go astray at the last step. So they don't know about the Noor of Allah. So Descartes comes to this, I think therefore I am, and ultimately he goes the same path. He says that once I know that I exist and I know that God exists, and then God is not a deceiver. So this is one method. And Hume also says exactly the same thing. In fact, they have actually plagiarized from Al-Ghazali. They have copied his material without acknowledging it. But Hume replaces God by nature. But what he has written is very, very similar to what Ghazali has written. So neither of these people understood what Noor of Allah is. So this is the problem. They did not get to the right place, and everybody else later on built on their flawed copies of Ghazali. So the key Western position today is about knowledge is called logical positivism, and it says that all human knowledge comes from empirical evidence and logic. This was already rejected by Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali said that logic and facts cannot lead us to the truth. It only comes from the Noor of Allah. But today, all of Western knowledge is built on this logical positivism. And so what is wrong with logical positivism? One is that the most important questions we face, like what is the purpose of life, how should we live as human beings, these are not possible to learn by facts and logic. And in fact, even in more simple areas like science, like chemistry, biology, facts and logic are not enough to lead you to the truth. You need the ilham of Allah. And certainty does not come from facts and logic. It comes from having illumination of the heart by Allah. So these are just three basic facts. So the key insight of Ghazali is that certainty, which we are looking for, the truth, is a condition of the heart. It's only the heart which can see the truth. It is not the mind. Now, the problem with the West is that West rejects the heart as a source of knowledge. West says that only we have our brains and our eyes. So this is what logical positivism is, that knowledge comes from the eyes, the observation, and from the brain's logic, but not from the heart. But the Quran says that Allah ja'ala lakum as-sam'a wal absara wal afidah, So Allah Ta'ala created ears, eyes and hearts. So our observation is from what we hear, what we see and what we feel. This is very important. Heart is a source of knowledge. And Hadith also says that if there is a piece of flesh in the body, which is the heart, and if it is good, then everything is good. And if it is bad, then everything is bad. So for Islamic knowledge, we have to do tazkiyah, purification of the heart. The heart has the capability to recognize the truth, but it can become polluted and darkened and black, and then it can fail to recognize the truth. So the key step to acquiring knowledge is purification of the heart. And this requires building close relationship with Allah. Allah Ta'ala guides the believers from darkness to light. Allahu waliyul lazina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. And so there are 3 stages of spiritual progress. Nafs-e ammara. All of Western social science is about the nafs-e ammara. So they don't have any concept of nafs-e lawwama and nafs-e mutma'inna. So lawwama comes when you understand that nafs-e ammara is a mistake, an illusion. You are pursuing pleasures and you're not thinking about others, and so you start feeling guilty. So basically, one way to rebuild social science is to understand that man is not homo economicus. What the economic theory, all of economic theory is about the nafs-e ammara. And I have explained this in one of my papers. So how do we build our relationship to Allah? We have to ask for help from Allah in all our tasks. We have to be in continuous communication with Allah. When I am cooking something, then I say, oh Allah, make this easy, make this good, and accept this as a path to blessings. And for our daily needs, we turn to Allah. For our big problems, like big things in our life, like choosing a career or choosing a wife or choosing a husband, there's Salatul Hajat. And this Salatul Hajat says 3 things. It asks for 3 things: forgiveness for sins, removal of sorrows, and fulfillment of our needs. But we have to realize all these 3 things are only one thing. Sins come from ghafla, neglect of God. Hum or huzn or sorrow comes from distance from Allah, being away from Allah. And our hajat is achieving ma'arifah or hub of Allah. So I'm going to skip this because the time is short. If we do the right spiritual practices, we will achieve closeness to Allah. And then we will be able to see that Western ulum are just darkness. They are built on massive fundamental foundational errors. And it is very, very deep ignorance which is masquerading as knowledge. Now, if you study economics, you will see that there are lots and lots of equations and very fancy computers and very, very difficult formulas, but they are all nonsense. It's just garbage because they are built on wrong assumptions. So basically, we need to do a lot of work in developing an alternative. And I have started work on something which is called Ulumul Umran. And this is an Islamic alternative to Western social science. And I have described it in this link. So basically, I'm going to give 3 examples. One is that economic theory is built on the wrong ideas, that the goal of human life is to maximize pleasure, and this is wrong. And the goal of firms is to maximize profits, and this is wrong. The goal of human beings is to serve the creation of God for the sake of love of Allah. And also the goal of firms is to maximize service to mankind. And we earn profits in firms so that we can make better service to mankind. So this leads to an entirely different type of economic theory. Similarly, statistics is all wrong, and I have given some lectures on how you can rebuild statistics. It was designed for the wrong purpose, and it develops the wrong tools and wrong methodology. And Islamic psychology is also a very promising field of activity, because Islam tells us that we have ruh and we have nafs and we have aql and we have qalb, and Islamic psychology is built on understanding these 4 dimensions. And the Western psychologists have no idea about these. And people who have used this have learned that this gives us much better insight into human beings, and it teaches us how we can help human beings achieve itminan or sakoon. So there is a huge task ahead of us, which is the revival of religious sciences, Ahya Ulumuddin. Western education is toxic, it's poisonous, it poisons our heart, it teaches the superiority of the whites, and it teaches us that all the things, it teaches us the wrong answers to the major questions we face. But also the Eastern education in our madrasas is not sufficient for our needs today, because they cannot, they deal with how Muslims solved their problems in ancient times, but they don't tell us how to solve our modern problems. So we need to develop new models of education. And the first thing we need to teach is excellence in conduct and how to reach God, how to achieve communication with God. And this does not change across time. So this is the core teaching of Islam. And this we need to develop an education. Does Western education teach character? No, obviously not. So we need to build an Islamic alternative which starts by building character. And then also we can teach modern subjects like economics, mathematics in a much better way, far more efficiently and far more correctly than current Western syllabi. But this requires an enormous amounts of work and effort. And basically this is the Ghazali project. In all areas, whether it's social science or physical science, we have new frontiers. We have to rebuild knowledge from scratch, from zero. In the physical sciences, we have to look for the ayatullah, the signs. In chemistry, in physics, in biology, in all areas, the unbelievers have made things difficult by hiding the signs of Allah. So in the 20th century, we learned that the universe was created because the Big Bang theory became accepted. So now the question immediately arises, if the universe was created by some set of events which we don't know, there was inflation and Big Bang and many other things, but it doesn't matter. It's agreed that the universe did not exist and then it came into existence. So the question is, what caused the existence? There is a creator. This is immediately obvious. Yani once you know that the universe was created, then you know that there is a creator. And so more than that, it is known that the universe is designed very, very precisely to make human life possible. So the designer planned this creation in such a way that human life would be possible. With very, very slight changes in design, human life would be impossible. So this is how we need to redo the physical sciences, and the social sciences we need to rebuild while taking into account that there is an akhirah, there is judgment, there is God who is watching us and who can help us. So all of these things are not part of modern Western social science. So all of these are very, very challenging and exciting projects where we can start from zero and rebuild all of the social sciences on the basis of Islamic foundations. Nothing is done, and this is very important because we need to replace Western education, because Western education poisons and colonizes our minds and into believing that the Europeans are superior to us. So this is what the Ghazali group is about. It is working for the revival of the Islamic civilization. And Allah Ta'ala has promised, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. So if we work for this, Allah Ta'ala will show us the ways to do this. This is a great promise from Allah. If we make the juhd, we will find the fruits from Allah. And so there are many, many tasks which need to be done. And there is a short course, an Islamic revival, which has now been translated into Indonesian by Lisa, who is heading the Indonesian chapter of the Ghazali group. There is also a long course with 50 lectures, which I would like for people to take from me personally, and then they can become teachers of this course to other groups and take this knowledge to the Ummah. There are also lots of things that if people are interested in doing, I can assign them projects to produce the knowledge, how to there are many areas which are open. All the areas are open, in fact. So the question is, how can we produce new knowledge to replace the Western knowledge? And then we can participate in spreading the message. And there are many administrative tasks, building lists, sending emails, doing social media, etc., which are involved in publicizing. So this is the last slide, and I will stop here, and we can take questions and have more discussion.